Let's talk about functions. Now I've got this example here where we want to evaluate this function, f of x is equal to 2x plus 1. But before we get to that, let's talk about what that function is. So this function, we read it as f of x. F is the function name. Those variables, those x's, whatever's inside the parenthesis next to the f, that's considered our input. And whatever's on the other side of the parentheses is our rule. You can also think of that as your formula, but that 2x plus 1 in this case gives us our output. So it's really a lot like a vending machine. So if you push a button, the button that you choose determines what snack comes out of the vending machine. Now in algebra, it's not nearly as exciting, right? But what number you put into this function or this rule determines what number you're going to get out of that. Here's that first example. So I've got my function f of x, and it's that rule 2x plus 1. So I'm going to rewrite this as f of, and I'm going to put my x in here in a second. So f of my input is equal to 2 times whatever I give it, 2 times that input plus a 1. Now when we are evaluating, we're really finding the value of that function or the output. So I'm putting a 3 in. I'm going to use my red pen, and a 3 goes in for wherever my x's or my inputs were. Let's go ahead and put a 3 here and a 3 here. Now there's nothing to do on the left-hand side. This is just telling me that I'm evaluating it at a 3, evaluating my function at a 3. On the right, I can go ahead and do my math. So I've got a 2 times a 3, that's a 6, and then 6 plus 1. So the function evaluated at 3 is equal to 7. So my answer here is 7. We can also consider this as a pair of numbers. The input 3 is matched with that output of 7. Same function, different value. So we want to evaluate f of x. So f of x is equal to 2 times whatever we give it plus a 1. This time I'm going to put my x in red. So this is going to be a -2 here and a -2 here. Okay, but remember there's nothing to do on the left-hand side. That just tells us what we're computing or putting into our function. On the right-hand side, I've got to do 2 times -2. That's going to be a -4 plus a 1. So when I put a -2 into my function, I get -4 plus 1. I get a -3 out. Or I can say that I end up with this pair. -2 is paired with the output of -3. Let's take a look at a different kind of a function next. So I've got a different function here, and I'm going to evaluate it for 2 different values. One's going to be a fraction, so make sure that you stick around. So I've got g of x. This time the name of my function is g. So it's going to be g of whatever my input is equal to 9 my input squared plus 4. So that is going to give us, let's do our input again here in red. So that's going to give us a -2 and a -2. Now remember, there's nothing to do on the left-hand side. This is just telling us what we're working with. So I'm going to write that as g of -2. So my function evaluated at -2. Let's work through what we've got over here on the right. I can bring that 9 down. And let's do this -2 squared next. Well, that -2 squared is literally a -2 times a -2. Multiplying 2 negatives together, I end up with a positive number. So -2 squared is a positive 4. I'm going to use a dot there. So times 4 plus 4. 9 times 4 is 36. So I get 36 plus 4. So g of -2 is equal to 40. So I can say that -2 as an input is matched with an output of 40. Okay, so last up with this same function, I want to evaluate it using a 1/3. So I want to find the value of this function when I put a 1/3 in. So I've got g of my input is equal to 9 times my input squared plus 4. Let's put that input in using my red pen. So I'm going to put that 1/3 in. So g of 1/3. Input goes right here, and it's going to get squared. So I can just rewrite the left-hand side. G of 1/3 is equal to, I haven't done the 9 yet. I want to do the 1/3 squared next. When I square that 1/3, it's a 1/3 times a 1/3. Or you can think of this as squaring the numerator, which gives me 1 times 1, and squaring the denominator, which gives me 3 times 3. So I end up with a 1/9 here plus 4. So simplifying this output, I can actually use a 9/1 just instead of that 9. And I can see now that these 9s cancel. Okay, so what do I have? I've got, and I'm going to write this in a different color here, g of 1/3 is equal to, my 9's canceled. So I get a 1 divided by a 1, which is 1. 1 plus 4. So we end up with an output, so g of 1/3, the value of my function is equal to 5, or we can express this as the pair, input of 1/3 and an output of 5. I've got a lot more algebra videos for you. Take a look at this one next.